Well, how to do that? Sociologists, it's the Me Too case study, lesson 2. Okay, let's have some goals for our learning. You're going to know who Me Too movement affects. See, I correctly used affect because it's a verb. Yeah, in that instance. You're going to know what theories can be applied to Me Too. Hopefully you'll find you understand the rest of the unit a bit better as it's applied to this case study. Like, few people have had questions about deprivation and new social movements theories, but when you see this application it should make more sense. You're going to know the stages of Me Too. Admittedly, the research I gathered on that isn't fantastic, but anyway, I mean, there's just not that much of it. You're going to know how power is used in Me Too. Whew, so many learning goals, and you'll be able to use evidence. Okay, so what type of movement is Me Too? We looked at the 4 types and we thought, yeah, maybe it's reformative. Anyway, who does it affect? Young and vulnerable women. But now Tarana Burke has widened the scope of it to talk about marginalised people in marginalised situations. So she would now say that it affects all marginalised people. How broad is the effect? Well, it began in the English-speaking world, but it's spread to everywhere now. Tarana Burke says, there you go, she's broadened its meaning. International movement for justice, rather than just one group with over one issue. So she's broadened it from just being about women who have been victims of sexual assault to marginalised people in marginalised communities more broadly. You can still say that it's the more tight definition, because I think that's what most people would say, but the point there is that the purpose being to provide support for survivors of marginalisation through solidarity from finding out that other people have experienced the same thing. That's the common denominator between the two scopes of the definition. What's the aspect of the society that the movement is affecting? Well, you could argue it's social norms, values and traditions. So social norms, trying to remove gender bias, values, trying to value women more and believe them when they make allegations, and changing traditions. So, for example, sexist behaviour in the workplace, traditions of bikini model calendars in workplaces. That's a tradition that needs to go. Right, here is a map showing the use of the MeToo hashtag in the first 12 hours. So even in the first 12 hours, it's spread pretty widely. Here's another map telling roughly the same thing. This was where the hashtag MeToo's been most popular over an entire year. In general, you can see it's in the rich West more than elsewhere. That's probably, a lot of those other countries probably don't have a lot of Twitter users, to be honest. Right, deprivation theory applied to Me Too. So this was the deprivation theory, if you remember, was the theory of explaining social movements from before the 1960s, and it's more about economic issues, like feeling deprived of something. So one sociologist said, well, women may have a feeling of deprivation if they're harassed in the workplace, and therefore deprivation theory could explain it. The question you've got to ask yourself about whether or not you can apply deprivation theory to the Me Too movement is the Me Too movement primarily an economic well-being issue? I don't think it is, so I'm not sure that deprivation theory explains it very well. Which is why deprivation theory doesn't do a great job at explaining heaps of the social movements since the 1960s, because they are based more on well-being and disillusionment than economic stuff. So then this is another weakness of the deprivation theory. Deprivation is a necessary. You might need some deprivation for a social movement to get going, but it's not sufficient, it's not enough. So just having that sense of deprivation isn't enough to start a social movement. Necessary, but not sufficient. It's a very important concept in philosophy. Can't be bothered going into it. Here's an interesting little visual timeline. So we've got Weinstein way back when. And then there was a huge, the confirmation hearing of US Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh and Professor Blasey Ford, who accused him of sexual assault when they were young. She wasn't believed by Congress, and he is now a US Supreme Court judge for life. Okay, now let's apply the new social movement theory to Me Too. So, new social movements theory says these three things, that post-industrial economy is responsible for these new social movements, yeah? The goals aren't primarily economic well-being, they are about human rights, and they're about society, social and cultural change more than political change. So I'm not going to write down any notes saying whether or not new social movement theories explains Me Too, but think about it. Is the goal of Me Too about human rights or just about economic well-being? Is it sociocultural more than political? So there you have it, with my hints. Another interesting little timeline. So this is the number of tweets over time. So kicked off, and then every time someone super famous did it, had a bit more resonance. Then Oprah Winfrey, the goddess herself, used it in her Golden Globe speeches, and then it just became a bit more popular in general. So, stages in the Me Too movement. As you remember, there are 4 stages. Emergence, so, you could probably argue that happened. So, there's a gap of 11 years in the movement. I mean, do you say the movement started in 2006 because Tarana Burke used the phrase Me Too in 2006, but really it only really went viral in 2017 after Alyssa Milano told people to respond to her tweet saying Me Too. So what happened between those two periods? Is that the emergence phase? You could argue that the emergence of this getting rid of sexual harassment movement has been emerging for ages. There's been a level of disgruntlement and dissatisfaction with how prevalent sexual assault and harassment, especially in the workplace, is for ages. So, again, I don't have any concrete answers for this. The coalescence phase, so this is probably 2017, 2018. This is where they started coming up with some strategies of how they're going to make some changes, like get some laws changed, get some people fired, blah, blah, blah. And then the bureaucratization phase is a bit more concrete evidence for this stage. So now Tarana Burke accepts the title of leader of the movement, although she prefers to call herself a worker because she's quite self-deprecating. The leadership, you'd probably argue it's mostly from Hollywood, from female actors in Hollywood. Would call them the symbolic leaders. There was that Golden Globes where all these actresses who were the symbolic leaders brought actual activists along with them as their dates, which increased the awareness of the movement big time. So you had your on-the-ground activist leaders and then your symbolic leaders coming to the Golden Globes together. So, and as part of the bureaucratization phase, there was a formal initiative called #TimesUp. That was a legal defense fund started by 300 women in Hollywood, and they've raised about $25 million to be used for legal fees for women who are trying to get allegations through the courts, which is very expensive to go to court. And they've got a website, metoomovement.org, so have a check of that if you want. So what's the decline phase? This is the one I find the trickiest to answer because, is the movement still going? Has it achieved its aims? Who knows? Has it gone mainstream? I certainly would argue I don't think it's failed. I think it's had some success, and you'll see that in a future lesson. So my personal belief is that it's a little like in terms of those 5 options of decline, I would say, yeah, some success, definitely, but also maybe it's gone mainstream. You don't need to specifically mention the Me Too movement concern about sexual harassment, particularly in the workplace, is quite mainstream now. So this is from the Time's Up movement. This was when it was launched by the 300 Women of Hollywood. This was the call to action and their value statement that was put up on a website on the 1st of January 2018. Have a gander at that if you want. So how was power used in Me Too? Let's talk about that. So what's the government done? Well, there's a small number of laws that have been changed, and you could probably also argue that they've started enforcing existing laws a bit more. Australia has got much stronger protections in the first place. There's quite a few employment inequalities in the US that have closed or lessened since this Me Too movement. Like a lot of migrant workers didn't have the same kind of protection from sexual harassment, which I think to an Australian viewer sounds quite weird. What about NGOs? So what about charities? Hasn't really been a lot of stuff from, I assume that Me Too itself now is a registered charity, but one interesting point is, which I put here, is that actually quite a lot of the NGOs themselves found that a lot of their leaders were guilty of sexual harassment, and so they were having to have their own Me Too movement, their own Me Too moment, where those leaders in those NGOs had to own up to their past unacceptable behaviour. I think a lot of the power in the Me Too movement comes from individuals and groups. You could argue that group of 300 women from Hollywood. So by individuals, we're talking about individual celebrities on Twitter. As individual celebrities have made allegations, that has pushed the movement along and increased its spread. There's a thing called hashtag activism. Hashtag activism does get a lot of criticism, and I'm going to show you a cartoon after this that does criticise it. However, and I must admit that myself personally, I've always kind of been like, oh yeah, you think you're making such a big change by like changing the background picture of your Facebook profile picture, but actually there is concrete research evidence that even though what you do online in itself isn't that influential, the act of the awareness increasing does have a flow-on effect for how people's behaviours change. So hashtag activism does make a difference. There are instances where it hasn't. When those girls were kidnapped in Africa, the Bring Our Girls Home, that wasn't successful, but just because it's not successful every time doesn't mean doesn't work. So hashtag activism is great because it expands communication. You know, when a Hollywood celebrity with millions of followers gets involved in hashtag activism, immediately millions, if not hundreds of millions, if you're a Beyonce or whatever, you know, people know about that movement. It makes it more democratic as well. More people can be involved when it's through social media rather than through traditional media, whatever. Yeah, all you need to do to be involved with the movement, tap, 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 boom, you're in the movement. And there's sustained engagement. As you saw from some of those timelines, every time another big allegation came along, the hashtag started trending again, and that gave it a bit more impetus. So I'm not saying that I'm in favour of what this cartoon's saying, but there's certainly a lot of people out there who think that way. Right, they're using evidence activity. So I want you to find evidence for how these groups responded to Me Too. So you can do this in a table if you want. I want you to give me just at least one piece of evidence. Yeah, some evidence showing what the Australian or the US government did in response to the Me Too movement. Some evidence for how powerful men in Hollywood responded to the Me Too movement. Did they get fired? Did they go to jail? Did they make public comments? What? Just give me an example of one or a few. Do the same with some business leaders. A social media platform, could be Twitter, that would be the obvious one, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Did they make any change to their policies, or who knows? And the traditional news media. So what kind of, how was it dealt with in typical newspapers or TV news, whatever? Right, check this video out. It's called Beat the Press. It's about Me Too.
In the wake of the monstrous sexual abuse accusations against Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein, many actresses started telling their stories, prompting the hashtag #MeToo campaign. It's taken off, and some journalists have taken off with it. Actress and activist Alyssa Milano tweeted this out Sunday afternoon, asking people to reply, "Me too," if you've been sexually harassed or assaulted.
What that enables us to do is say, no more. No more. We're not going to put up with this anymore.
Me Too has caught on, and while it's nonpartisan, it's a movement, making it dicey territory for female journalists. Still, many have weighed in, including NBC's Andrea Mitchell, who casually dropped the phrase into a speech this week. Some, though, like Seattle anchor Amity Adrisi, have made it more personal, telling viewers she was sexually assaulted at a young age.
This is the first time I've ever told my story on television, so why now? Because I think it's time to wipe away the glossy exterior. Anyone can be affected by sexual abuse. Even the lady who brings you the news.
Which also makes her part of the news, and by extension, making her colleagues part of the news.
We are so proud of you.
Yeah.
So proud of you.
Meanwhile, since virtually every woman has experienced some sort of harassment, most female reporters have resisted speaking about it directly, as in the CBS Morning Team.
So many people have the opportunity now to share what they've been holding inside.
They felt so empowered by being able to say, "Me too."
But what I think is important, too, is for the men to speak up and say, this is not okay.
Sounds like what they want to say is, "Me too." I actually respect and appreciated the fact that the three women from the CBS Morning News didn't add on to it. I mean, it's not that there's anything illegal about it. It's not you're violating some journalistic standard. But the minute you start doing that, you're making yourself the story. And the story that the Seattle anchor Amity Adrisi told was quite long and complicated, and involved being assaulted by a cousin when she was 4 years old, which seems to me like it's widening this circle well beyond, I think, what it was originally intentioned with Me Too. I mean, most women, I've say virtually every woman over a certain age has had some kind of harassment, be it verbal or a power smash, which is more often, or some kind of a sexual approach. And then that was pedophilia. I mean, I guess you can put it under the same umbrella, but it may be uncomfortable that she was making herself the story.
I thought long and hard before putting Me Too out there on social media.
Did you do it?
I did do it.
Yeah.
I think there's a way to do it where you're not bringing up your personal story and making it part of the story. I posted simply Me Too. I noted that there was a flood of Me Toos in my feed that morning, a small break and then another flood of them, and that all of us who are able to say Me Too are actually the ones who have a voice, and that there are millions and millions of others who don't. So that was it. I didn't share any personal details. The campaign was originally meant to show people who are unaware of the prevalence of the problem that it's a much, much bigger problem than they think. So it was triggered by Weinstein, but it wasn't just about actresses who have been assaulted.
Because it actually got going 10 years ago,
right.
I think.
And it did. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But I think what's really interesting about it is a lot of people used it as a chance to kind of release whatever emotions they were holding in about it, which may be what some people needed, probably was very triggering for other people.
I guess I'm drawing the line at journalists.
I think it's important to note that that kind of harassment is about power, not necessarily about attraction, and it happens in journalism.
Yeah, and you know, I would say that in terms of journalists doing it, it's not a partisan issue. There isn't another side to sexual harassment. I don't see it as ideological. It really didn't bother me that that female journalists
ideological
do it.
undertow of this campaign.
No, I don't.
No.
I don't.
I think this existed long before
And
this
I will
campaign.
tell you that as a certified old guy, I found it to be enlightening, because if you had asked me before this campaign, I would have said I think sexual harassment is a big problem, underreported, huge, and yet the Me Too campaign has convinced me that even though I would have used words like that, it's much bigger than I had even realized. And I think a lot of men, I would count myself among them, are thinking, if we find ourselves in a situation in the future where we're seeing this happen, we're hearing this happen, we can't let it slide. We've got to say something and speak up. And I think that that's been very useful for all of us.
Go ahead.
what is the ideological
I know you're going to push
element?
me.
Well, we talked about this before the show.
I feel like there's a liberal undertow. I mean, that's because it's directed at Trump. And the bottom line is it all comes back to Trump.
It's not directed at Trump, though.
This was triggered by
I know,
a big liberal
but Trump is the molester in chief.
Well, I think Trump was, again, a focal point during his campaign, and maybe the Access Hollywood tape, maybe the accusations against him kind of make this seem a much more current event. Keep in mind, this was a big thing during the Clinton era, too. I mean, and during the debates.
And you didn't see it then because it was Clinton.
Because people assume that this is normal. Society's changing. All the people who are accused of this kind of thing now, who are being kind of crucified for it, you've got Cosby, you've got Weinstein, you've got the list goes on and on and on. They're all O'Reilly, exactly. They're from an age where this was considered acceptable or at least ignorable, and that age has changed. And I think that's what you're seeing now.
I would just add that we live in an era where, first of all, the confessional is ordinary. It's an accepted part of the culture, and many journalists are as much celebrities as they are journalists. And you see, Robin Roberts with her, I believe it was a cancer struggle, very public with a
I feel the same way about all that.
Kelly Tuthill at Channel 5. So you see that quite often. That makes you uncomfortable also.
Yeah, Katie Couric with her husband having a public colonoscopy.
I don't know. If you can use your celebrity to shed light on something that helps people, why not?
Refresh my memory. When Lara Logan was assaulted in Tahrir Square, she discussed what happened to her.
Yes,
then,
finally
right?
she did with Scott Pelley.
So I'm not sure what is different about her sharing what she experienced in sort of intense
that was a very public
and
event.
very upsetting
Everybody
detail.
knew what happened. She
That's
had the guts to then go into the details.
Well, this is true, but because there again, you have a journalist who is enhancing the degree to which they are part of the story. So
but this was a mob of it was completely different.
Absolutely, no, I'm not saying that her experience of being assaulted was fundamentally different. What I'm saying is she became the story.
Yeah, but
in
not
that case,
by her own doing.
Well, she gave the interview.
No, but these women, she gave the interview, exactly.
Right.
She chose to share
She was on the story, but she was covering a different story when this happened and became the story.
Right, but then she chose...
We're talking about two different things.
We are talking about two. Then she chose to discuss it in a journalistic...
Months later, she felt like she had to just tell what happened.
I think a lot of people right now feel like they have to.
She didn't have to bring that up. I don't know. That happened when she was 4 years old.
One other thing that I would mention
and it wasn't public.
I can imagine some people, maybe Emily, saying, well, what if a journalist who has said that this happened to them then has to go cover a trial involving sexual assault? To my mind, they have provided valuable disclosure that wouldn't have been provided otherwise. So,
I'm mostly in the camp of, just let it all rip. And I just have this uneasiness about sharing that kind of stuff.
There's a surprisingly large number of negative videos out there about Time's Up. And it will be wrong of me to completely ignore them all, so here you go.
Movie stars are supposedly nothing like you and me. They are svelte, glamorous, self-possessed. They wear dresses we can't afford and live in houses we can only dream of. Yet, it turns out that in the most painful and personal ways, movie stars are more like you and me than we ever knew. One fine morning in the early October in 2017, while most of the people were either sleeping from the hangover of the night before, or having breakfast, or simply chilling by watching Netflix, actress Alyssa Milano posted a tweet on the 15th of October inviting all those who have experienced sexual harassment to respond with Me Too. Me Too, the two-word phrase which took the internet by storm, and the consequence was of such high magnitude, it unmasked all the bigwigs of predatory nature, mostly related to the Hollywood film industry, who use their craft and fame as a masquerade to hide their sexual ravening. Her tweet followed the October 5 10-month-long New York Times investigation carried by Jodie Cantor and Megan Twohey, who dug the grave of decades of sexual harassment allegations against Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein dating back to the 90s, and within hours, #MeToo went viral. It was nearly impossible to scroll through social media without seeing a post tagged with #MeToo. But what does Me Too exactly mean? And where did the hashtag come from? Who are the victims? And what are the naked truths of the accused celebrities? Here's everything you need to know. Too is an online campaign that supports the survivors of sexual abuse, assault, and harassment. Although it has gained popularity since October, the initiative actually began 10 years ago. Tarana Burke, an activist from Harlem, launched the movement a decade ago, but due to lack of support, the campaign couldn't take a flight back then until Alyssa Milano stepped in and used her status of a public figure to give voice to all those silenced by people of powerful clout, thus resurfacing the hashtag MeToo. The news inspired dozens of female celebrities, including Rose McGowan, Gwyneth Paltrow, Angelina Jolie, and Kate Beckinsale, who were amongst the early ones to open up about being harassed by Harvey Weinstein and many other Hollywood biggies. Several male celebrities like Anthony Rapp, Terry Crews also spoke up about being sexually harassed and why there is a need to put a stop in sexual violence in their industry. And in the first 24 hours, more than 40,000 people had responded to her tweet and more than 12 million people had engaged with the hashtag across Facebook and Twitter. The ambassador of sexual perversion, Mr. Harvey Weinstein. An investigation by the New York Times found previously undisclosed allegations against Mr. Weinstein, stretching over nearly 3 decades, documented through interviews with current and former employees and film industry workers, as well as legal records, emails, internal documents from the businesses that he has run, like Miramax and Weinstein Company. The article represented the first time multiple women, at least 80, among them the actresses Ashley Judd and Rose McGowan, who went on record with specific allegations against Mr. Weinstein. As a response to the allegations, on October 10, Sally Hofmeister, his spokeswoman, released a statement saying any allegations of non-consensual sex are unequivocally denied by Mr. Weinstein. Mr. Weinstein has further confirmed that there were never any acts of retaliation against any women for refusing his advances. He will not be available for further comments as he is taking the time to focus on his family, on getting counseling, and rebuilding his life. The issue became a political cudgel and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton condemned Mr. Weinstein. A consequence of what some have dubbed the Weinstein ripple effect, here's a list of the celebrities who have been facing allegations ranging from inappropriate behavior to forced sexual misconduct to rape. Ryan Seacrest, accused by former wardrobe stylist Susie Hardy, denies the allegations. Oscar-winning actor Dustin Hoffman, accused by at least 7 women, he has apologized for the same. John Travolta, accused by at least 5 men decades ago, most of them being male masseurs. Golden Globe-winning actor James Franco, accused by at least 5 women, which includes the Breakfast Club actress Ali Sheedy and Sarah Tither Kaplan, denies the allegations. Actor Jeremy Piven, accused by at least 8 women, denies the allegations. Filmmaker Brett Ratner, known for Rush Hour and X-Men The Last Stand, accused by at least 14 women, denies the allegations. Black Hawk Down and Saving Private Ryan actor Tom Sizemore, accused of groping 11-year-old actress in 2003, denies the allegations. Oscar-winning actor Kevin Spacey, accused by at least 24 men, thrown out of House of Cards and replaced in a completed film All the Money in the World, he confirmed the allegations by releasing a statement on Twitter and is currently in rehab. Emmy Award-winning actor Jeffrey Tambor, quite famous for his show Transparent, accused by at least 3 women, denies the allegations by calling them flawed and biased. Star Trek actor George Takei, accused by Scott Brunton, denies the allegations. Writer-director James Toback, accused by at least 395 women of sexual harassment. He, however, denies the allegations and has also verbally abused the victims or the accusers. Bob Weinstein. 5 days after blasting his brother Harvey Weinstein as a very sick man and a world-class liar, Bob Weinstein was accused of making repeated romantic advances to a showrunner and many other women who claimed that he refused to take no for an answer. Actress and former Playboy model Carrie Stevens accused writer and director Oliver Stone of groping her at a party during the 1990s. After Stevens, Patricia Arquette and Melissa Gilbert also accused Oliver Stone of sexual misconduct. He, however, denies the allegations. Gossip Girl actor Ed Westwick, accused by at least 6 women of sexual assault, denies the allegations. Backstreet Boys singer Nick Carter, accused of rape by pop singer Melissa Schumann, denies the allegations. Comedian Louis C.K., accused by 5 women of sexual misconduct, confirms the allegations and has apologized. Charlie Sheen, accused by many people of misconduct, recent one being the accusation of raping late actor Corey Haim 30 years ago. It was brought to light by Corey Haim's close friend Dominic Brascia. And according to recent reports, Dominic Brascia is now being accused of being the original abuser of Corey Haim. Hours after Ben Affleck released a statement condemning Harvey Weinstein's alleged sexual misconduct, Affleck was accused of groping Hillary Burton, an actress and former host of MTV's Total Request Live in the early 2000s. He apologized via a tweet that read, "I acted inappropriately toward Ms. Burton and I sincerely apologize." Later, he was also accused by makeup artist Anna Marie Tendler of groping her at the Golden Globes party. He has apologized for the same. Oscar-winning actor Michael Douglas, accused by acclaimed journalist Susan Browdy, denied the allegations by issuing a statement saying Browdy was doing a true disservice to those who have actually endured sexual harassment and intimidation. Comedian Aziz Ansari, accused by a photographer of sexual misconduct while they were on a date. The Master of None star addressed the allegations in a statement saying, "The next day I got a text from her saying that although it may have seemed okay, upon further reflection she felt uncomfortable. I was surprised and concerned. I took her words to heart and responded privately after taking the time to process what she had said. I continue to support the movement that is happening in our culture. It is necessary and long overdue." Actor Steven Seagal, accused by at least 4 women of rape, including the wife of Ellen DeGeneres, Portia de Rossi, denies the allegations. Sylvester Stallone, accused of assaulting 2 women in 1990s, denies the accusations. Russell Simmons, the hip-hop mogul and Def Jam brand founder, accused by Kerry Clausen Kaligi and multiple women, denied any inappropriate behavior by saying, "All of my relations have been consensual." Matt Lauer got fired by NBC News following 2 decades as Today anchor after a detailed complaint was lodged against him about inappropriate sexual behavior in the workplace by multiple women. Former President George H.W. Bush. 7 women from separate incidents have come forward to accuse former President George H.W. Bush of touching them from behind while they posed beside him for photos. Some said he also told them a dirty joke. Roy Moore, accused by at least 9 women, he however denies all the allegations, as even the President Donald Trump appears to back him by saying, "Look, he denies it. He denies it." The US President Donald Trump, accused by at least 19 women of forced sexual behavior. He, as usual, denies them by calling all the accusers liars. Larry Nassar, accused of sexual abuse by more than 256 women, including Michaela Maroney and Jamie Dancer, is currently serving life imprisonment on charges of child pornography and sexual misconduct. Time Magazine 2017 Person of the Year. In the 2017 edition of the Time magazine, they featured many survivors of sexual harassment or misconduct, terming them as the Person of the Year. The hashtag #MeToo, which to date has provided an umbrella of solidarity for millions of people to come forward with their stories, is part of the picture, but not all of it. This reckoning appears to have sprung up overnight, but it has actually been simmering for years, decades, centuries. Women have had it with the bosses and co-workers who not only cross boundaries, but don't even seem to know that boundaries exist. They have had it with the fear of retaliation, of being blackballed, of being fired from a job they can't afford to lose. They've had it with the code of going along to get along. They've had it with men who use their power to take what they want from women. These silence breakers have started a revolution of refusal, gathering strength by the day, and in the past 2 months alone, their collective anger has spurred immediate and shocking results. Nearly every day, CEOs have been fired, moguls toppled, icons disgraced. In some cases, criminal charges have been brought. The women and men who have broken the silence span all races, all income classes, all occupations, and virtually all corners of the globe. They are part of a movement that has no formal name, but now they have a voice. Time's Up Movement. Time's Up is a movement against sexual harassment founded on January 1, 2018 by Hollywood celebrities, and as of March 2018, it has raised $21 million for its legal defense fund and gathered over 200 volunteer lawyers. When reports surfaced that Michelle Williams was paid just $800 for 10 days to redo certain scenes in the movie All the Money in the World, while Mark Wahlberg received $1.5 million for the same period, Mark Wahlberg and William Morris Endeavor, his talent agency, donated more than $2 million to Time's Up in early January 2018 in the name of Michelle Williams as a display of respect and solidarity. Attendees at the 2018 75th Golden Globe Awards stood united by following the black dress code. White Rose Grammy Awards 2018. Many showbiz royalties sent another powerful message by wearing white roses to the January Grammy Awards in solidarity with the Time's Up movement. We choose the white rose because historically it stands for hope, peace, sympathy, and resistance. The world is listening. Wear a white rose, they wrote. The 90th Academy Awards 2018. The conversation that dominated the 2018 awards season continued all the way through its grand finale. The movement began at this year's Golden Globes, and even the Oscars followed suit by dedicating a portion of the show to highlight the issue. Jimmy Kimmel's monologue. Jimmy Kimmel headed over to the large golden Oscar statue on stage, explaining, "Oscar is the most beloved and respected man in Hollywood, and there's a very good reason why. Just look at him. He keeps his hands where you can see them, never says a rude word, and most importantly, no p at all. He is literally a statue of limitations, and that's the kind of men we need more of in this town." Then more straightforwardly, he added, "We can't let this behavior slide anymore." Over the course of this evening, I hope you will listen to many brave and outspoken supporters of movements like #MeToo and Time's Up and Never Again, because what they are doing is important. Things are changing for the better, they are making sure of that. It's a positive change. The subtle nods. When Sandra Bullock walked on stage to present the award for Best Cinematography, she presented the nominees as, "Here are the 3 men and the 1 trailblazing woman," as a nod to the first woman nominated in the category, Rachel Morrison. In the same way, Emma Stone announced the nominees in the Best Director category as "These 4 men" and Greta Gerwig, calling out the sole female in the category. Frances McDormand, the Oscar and show stealer. Frances McDormand won the Oscar for Best Actress for her work in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. After her thank you speech, she set her Oscar down on the stage to gain some perspective. She then went on and asked all the female nominees in every category to stand up. She asked everyone else in the room to look around because we all have stories to tell and projects we need financed. She ended her speech with 2 words, inclusion rider, encouraging more people to fight for inclusion in the industry. The fight doesn't stop with the hashtag or the movement. In fact, the fight has just begun as the people have taken an oath to never let themselves be silenced. And the list is just a glimpse of the wave to come.
Growing up in the Me Too movement. From memory, this one's about kids.
Some boys at school have picked on me and my friends. We've seen messages like on Snapchat saying that like we have small boobs or it's time for you to go through puberty, and just things that we can't change about ourselves.
Trying to work to their level, like, please, like, I respect you, please respect me back. Being a girl is used as a synonym for you're so weak.
I think everyone's equal, but I think boys may have to work on their attitude a little bit.
When I see boys being mean to girls, I tell them to stop. Sometimes they listen to me.
When this guy had been texting me, and we had just been texting casually, like, "Hey, what's up? How was your day?" And at one point he surprised me and he texted me like if I wanted to hook up with him. And immediately I was like, "No, like I'm not that kind of girl, no." And he starts trying to pressure me into it, saying like, "Just tell me if you need it, like just say you need it." And I was like, "No."
Respect means to be nice to others, don't talk back, and listen.
I was walking in our neighborhood and these 3 boys start to approach me, and so I'm in my small area on the side and they're taking up their room in the middle of the road, and so we start to approach each other And we pass each other. They do start to move over to my side and they start to invade my space. And I get farther away from them. And then suddenly I hear one of them scream, "Pussy." And it scared me because there was no one else there an adult, to say to them that that's not right.
I was in kindergarten, and this boy was in my class. He had anger issues, and my mom put us on the bus every Friday. Then one Friday, me and him sat in the back. But then he started hitting me. He punched me. That's why I started taking boxing. My mom doesn't put me on the bus anymore, but I want to be on the bus.
A boy once told me that I can't be an artist because I'm a girl, because I'm not able and I'm not strong enough. For a while, I just thought maybe I should leave it alone, but then I realized that I can do what I want to. And yeah, I told him that I can be what I want to be because I'm important to the world.
I hope the boys in my class are paying attention to what's going on in the news, because they need to stop and they need to learn that their bad behavior is not acceptable.
I would say that you need to teach your sons to be more careful and respectful of other women and girls, so you should teach them to be more caring.
I think because we know that boys look up to their fathers, because it's the closest thing to like a grown-up version of themselves that they see. This is the right thing to do. This is what I'm going to do as well. The father just shows them that. It's spreading another message to one person. The norm is being nice to women and girls.
They can't tell someone that we can't be what we want to be, because we're human beings too.
Thank you.
Now, there's been this idea that women themselves are divided over this Me Too movement and their support for it. Now, all women don't think the same, so obviously all women don't have the same views on the Me Too movement. But this video suggests that there's not this massive division, so check it out.
The Me Too movement.
Me Too movement.
In the Me Too movement. It is a non-verbal cue.
And they are just so fucking fragile.
Where is the line now?
Have you ever felt sexually harassed at work?
No. Luckily not.
Not really.
Never in the workplace. Well, yes. I've never been harassed at work.
Not directly.
Of course, yeah.
No, because I had my stand. I did my internship, and one man approached me and I said, the only time I'm going to touch your penis is to put it in this syringe.
And why did you have to say that to him? Did he approach you?
Yes, he approached me. He approached me. He took his penis out and asked me to hold it.
Between 60 and 70% of women don't report sexual harassment because they weren't sure that it was serious enough.
Oh my God. That's really sad. Yeah, I believe that. I'm surprised it's not more. In my work as an RA, I come up with that a lot because I'm always, offering resources, telling women what their options are. And so many of them just say, I don't want to go through that ordeal. I know it's going to end poorly. And how can I disagree with that?
I struggled when everyone was posting the Me Too stuff online to be like, does my story count, or am I detracting from this movement? I want to say Me Too to acknowledge how prevalent all of this is, but if no one grabbed me, if it was some compliment that really was inappropriate for the workplace, it's like that. It was always on that line.
I don't know any woman my age, I can't speak for younger, who hasn't been the object of sexual harassment.
They would always take the male side because the male was in power.
Like, I went for a job interview one time as a waitress, and I had waitressing experience, and the man said, turn around and walk away from me so I can see your legs. And so I did. I mean, we did. We just expected it.
Those were the days. Every man was entitled and every woman was not entitled.
Do you think that the way this movement is happening, do you think it'll have a positive impact? Are you optimistic about?
Oh, yes. It's going to have an impact. It already has, I feel. I don't think it's going to go away because women are free and they now know that other women are experiencing the same. We just have to find our place.
I hope it continues. I think there's a lot of potential there. But it feels like everything is so up in the air these days that I have no idea how long it'll last before people say this has gone too far and like these accusations aren't big enough, and that's my fear.
It's catching on. I mean, women everywhere are hearing it. There has to be momentum. I think it's there, and women's lives will be better.
I think it's not about women, it's about men. That's the change that needs to take place. And right now I really only see women claiming Me Too. So, question mark for now.
Your reflection activity today is a very simple one. I want you to write a newspaper headline that sums up today's lesson. Homework! Nice and easy. I want you to spend 15 minutes on that vocab quiz. Don't shy away from doing the vocab quiz. Repetition and rote learning is successful. It will help you learn all of this vocabulary. Please do it. Thanks for participating in today's lesson, and don't ever forget to keep it real.